before we start, it would probably be a good idea for me to mention. I just want to make sure that we are adding the letter to the mayor to the regular agenda so that it can be discussed.
I have it under board report since it hasn't been sent or anything, but we can move that under, because there's multiple things attached with that whole thing. As you, if you saw my agenda, it's the homeless camp abatement, follow-up letters, potential board placement deterrent, and last night's Bernard Community Council resolution, all rolled into one.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we're discussing why the letter wasn't sent.
I was going to cover that under board report for sure.
Okay, as long as we're able to discuss it, that's my only request. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I hopefully you got my email I sent a little bit earlier. Okay. I think I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. So I'll press OK. And husband Dan Gleason is hosting our meeting this evening. So thank you, Dan. I'm Kathy Gleason, president of Turnagain Community Council. This is our June 5th, 2025 general membership meeting. And it will be the last meeting for the long daytime summer hours. Our next meeting will be in September. So our next, and I'll introduce, let's see, we've got our vice president, Karen Pletnikoff, and our treasurer, Kathleen McCoy, and board member at large, John Isaacs. And I think those are the only board members. So welcome, and thank you for taking the time this evening to join our meeting. So the next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. And I do have 2 amendments to propose. And Sean, if you feel strongly about the item you're talking about to go under old new business, that could be an amendment as well. But we'll start with moving that the Part 150 noise study report under land use committee be moved up under airport report, so that Eric Peterson, who presumably is going to give that, can just do that under, along with all the airport related stuff in that general area. So can I have someone make a motion to do that one amendment?
I move to move the Part 150 airport study report from TCC's committee reports to executive board report.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And is there any discussion about that amendment? If not, does anybody oppose? If no objection, then that is passed. So that's amendment number 1. And amendment number 2 is adding an item that is not on there. It's a request for a dimensional variance at 3414 Iliamna Drive. We got something sent to us, and I didn't invite anybody because just found out about it, but the deadline is June 12th. So we need to have a motion to add that to old and new business. So can I get a motion to do that?
I'll move to add Iliamna variance to old new business.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Steve. Any discussion? Any objection? Okay, that is added to old and new business. Okay, anything else on amending the agenda before we continue on? Okay, so as amended, can I have a motion to approve the agenda for this evening?
I move to approve the amended agenda.
Okay, thank you, John. And I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen.
Aye.
And any objection to approving the agenda for June 5th, 2025 as amended? Okay, I don't see any objections, so the agenda as amended passed. Okay. All right, moving on to the next announcements, and I just have one. So this evening, conflicting with our meeting, unfortunately, and I'm glad it's a nice evening for this event. The Anchorage Concert Association, working with Parks and Rec, and I think the Anchorage Park Foundation is sponsoring a summer series concert this evening at Fish Creek Park, which is in our boundary area. And it's tonight from 7 to 8. So if all of a sudden our attendance drops dramatically at a little before 7, I'll know what you guys are up to. So that's my only announcement. Does anybody else have any other announcements they'd like to share? Okay, no other announcements. And thank you all for those who are continuing to join in. Welcome to this evening's TCC meeting. Okay, next on the agenda is what's new in Turnagain, which is just a briefing about anything anybody wants to share going on in our neighborhood. So does anybody have anything brief to share?
I have something I'd like to share or talk about.
Yes, please, Steve.
The abatement of that island between Benson and Northern Lights and Lois that looks like they did a pretty good job of moving those folks along. Somebody approached me about doing something different with that property. And
Well, can I interrupt you, Steve? Because that's
Sure.
actually on our agenda
okay, I'll put it aside.
under executive report, but then you're going to get all the credit for doing all the legwork.
I am.
Yes,
Oh.
yes, absolutely.
We get paid for that? No.
As much as I get paid, you bet.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Does anybody else want to share anything under what's new in Turnagain? Even though that was a legitimate what's new in Turnagain, but we do address it as a council later on. Okay. Okay. So if not, we'll move on to the executive board report. And our next board meeting is never scheduled this far in advance, to be determined. And so if anybody's interested in finding out when that is and when the board will meet next, please just contact any of us to let us know, because the next item is that we don't meet in July or August. Our next meeting is September 4th. We always have the ability to schedule a special meeting if we need to per our bylaws, but I'm hoping that that won't be the case. And so, so the board will still meet over the summer. There's no stopping a ton of things going on, but our general membership meetings will take a pause. So, treasurer's report. So Kathleen, would you like to give the treasurer's report, please?
You bet. Hi, everybody. Very quickly, at the direction of the Community Council Board, on May 30th, I moved $1,400 from our savings account to our checking account in our North Rim business account. And that brought our checking balance to $2,045.05. And our savings balance is now at $219.18. The purpose of that was, if we can get our checking account up to $2,500, we will no longer be paying a $5 monthly fee, which is required if you're below $2,500 in your checking. And we do need to maintain $200 in our savings. So right now we're pretty close to that $2,500 goal. And I would just note that some board members have said they would like to chip in and get us up to that. So we'll see if we can get up to that and then stop paying bank fees every month. That's the treasurer's report.
Okay, thank you so much. And I know that Dan and I had made a decision to donate some money a couple of months ago, I think in April, and we're willing to do that again. So, but if anybody else wants to join us in that, it just makes sense. It's silly for us to be paying that $5 fee every month. So I know there was others that might be interested in doing that as well. But just FYI, it's not tax deductible because we are not a registered 501c3 nonprofit. Only the umbrella Federation of Community Councils is. Okay. So thank you, Kathleen. And the next item on the agenda under Executive Board Report is FCC Delegate Report. So let's see, I can say approved as amended on that file.
Kathy, while you're pulling that up, could you say how we could donate to TCC? What would be the best way to send a check to someone, or how would we do that?
Yes, I mean, you could send it to me or send it directly to our treasurer, Kathleen. It depends on, Kathleen, do you want to give your information out? If not, I understand. So,
What do you need from me? Like my email or?
well, if they're going to send a donation, it'll probably be via, check or cash or something.
Mhm, mhm. Why don't I put my phone number in the chat and then people can just call me and we'll figure it out. Is that okay?
Thanks,
Yeah,
Kathleen.
that's great.
I already have yours, if I'm
Oh,
the only one
okay.
who's interested.
Okay, I'll put my phone number in case anybody else wants to make a donation. Yeah, and I'll give you my info then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I just realized that we did not approve the May 1st minutes. I jumped ahead of myself, so I apologize. Chris Havich, our treasurer, provided draft minutes from our last general membership meeting on that was held on May 1st, 2025. So can I get a motion to approve the May 1st, 2025 TCC minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Okay. Let me write that down.
Second,
Can I get a second?
Dan
Thanks.
Gleason.
Is there any objection to approval of the minutes that were sent out with this meeting notice? If not, then they are approved. No objection, approved. Sorry about that I didn't catch that. Okay, they weren't in the right order in my situation here. So, okay. So we'll jump back to executive board report and FCC delegate meeting. So I'll put that there. So it was a big meeting as always. There's lots of things they cover because they divided up into a FCC board meeting part and then the community council delegate as far as the what councils do. So it's kind of part 1 and part 2. And covered a lot, but the FCC is updating their bylaws and there's a committee working on that. I'm not on that committee. They're taking an initial look at a 2026 budget for FCC because it's in the fall when that has to be submitted to the assembly when they work on the budget for the following year. So that's taking place. And we did have FCC officer elections because it's from August of one year to the following July. So that happened at our May meeting. And Graham Downey from the municipality did cover homeless camp discussion. He said they have 5 core areas that they're focusing on from the municipal perspective, and it's abatement, housing, enforcement, crisis care, and shelter. So it's kind of juggling 5 balls at once to try and deal with the homeless problems that we have in our community, which is unfortunate. But so he asked, if there was any questions, and there was a little bit of discussion, but it was good that he, attended just to remind us of what all the municipality is doing and under what kind of subheading. And it was good to hear the announcement that the Anchorage Police Department is fully staffed now, which hadn't been the case, I think, for quite some time. I know that was a high priority for the mayor. And so it looks like that she's accomplished that, and hopefully that helps on so many levels with the safety of our community. There was an announcement that Town Square Park is closed. If you've been downtown, you've probably already seen it. They're gonna remove pretty well everything, all the trees or most of the trees and everything, get rid of the mounds. They're gonna completely redo it since it was on the Parks bond. In April, it's gonna be tough to see those mounds and trees go because that was kind of what made that area unique, but certainly because of the problems that have been occurring in the last few years, they're going in a different direction for what that really is going to, how it's going to intersect with downtown. Elizabeth Athley from the planning department just said that they're updating their website, and so we need to kind of keep a close eye on that as far as some hopefully positive changes in that area. And Amanda Loach from the Office of Emergency Services provided a presentation on what they do during emergencies. So that's kind of just a summary of what happened at the May 21st, 2025 Federation of Community Council delegate meeting. Public is welcome to attend. And the next one will be on I don't know the date, but it's the third Wednesday of June. So okay, let's see. So moving on then is Linary Park, Michelle Byram Memorial Garden Work Party update. So I did talk to Ellen at the Parks and Rec Department, and we're going to meet out on the park on site to just kind of see what all needs to be done and then work on a mutually beneficial date. So so I'm meeting with her a week from today. And then we'll definitely send out notices of when that work party is scheduled. And so, put it in the chat, and then maybe one of the board members can make a note of it. Anybody who's interested in participating, assuming it's a good date for your availability, hopefully sometime this month or maybe early July at the latest. If you're interested, then go ahead and let us know. And then of course, if it conflicts with your calendar, understandable. But because there's a fair amount of stuff that needs to be done to kind of get it back to the way it used to be, which used to be very beautiful, but it's been neglected for a couple of years now. So then let's see. And if anybody else wants to meet at the park, we're meeting at 1 o'clock next Thursday. So let's see what's next. The Romig Hill Ski Slope, TCC considerations, concerns, and questions. This was brought up at our May 1st meeting of the idea to recreate a ski slope that used to be at the Romig Hill, which I'm not sure where it was since I wasn't familiar with it. I don't see that Pat Redmond has joined us because I know she would know where it is. So, so I started kind of just doing a kind of a list of the kind of things that I know that as a council, we would want a lot more information, and I won't read it, but it's like who has jurisdiction of the land, who would maintain it. I assume it's fully wooded now, so would removal of a lot of trees affect stabilization of a steep slope? How would it look in the summertime? Would it just kind of look like a big gash in the side of the area from Westchester Lagoon viewpoint? What kind of funding would be needed and where would that funding come from, etc. So those are the things that as a council, we would want to do a deeper dive into before we know if we wanted to, collaborate with West High on that proposal. And ironically, the same day that we had our board meeting, there was an article in the Daily News written by David Remmer, who does these historical pieces, and he included the Romig slope, ski slope. And so he said it started in 1957 and it featured a rope tow, and it was popular, but then the 1964 earthquake happened. And so he said, changes were made in that whole area. The earthquake altered the geography, lowering the ground. The creek's mud flats flooded at high tide. This included the abandoned ski slope was flooded. And so icebergs suddenly reached and abutted against the rope tow trestles. So that's kind of what happened to that. And that's why it doesn't remain today. So just wanted to report on that. And if anybody's here that is interested, if anybody that came up last month, then, please contact the board. We just really have to do our due diligence on a lot of these and get answers to a lot of these questions before we just kind of jump in and support it. We didn't feel like we were prepared to do that at our meeting. The board can continue to follow this as the summer progresses. And if anybody wants to participate in that discussion, you can let us know. So
So
that's just
Kathy,
kind of
Kathy, a quick comment.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
I think in some ways this is related to the homeless issue down below West High. And if I remember the presentation correctly, I think either the student or the teacher involved said, they were interested in potentially turning it into a ski slope or a sledding hill and sort of clear it out so it can be used by students and not necessarily used by the homeless. So I think there is a linkage between those two issues to keep in mind.
Okay, of course, that again, that would have to be the devil's in the details on that kind of an idea.
Yep.
And except for homeless activity, it's a beautiful, beautiful area. Although I know on occasion over the years, that overlook area north of West High on Hillcrest gets vegetation kind of trimmed down so that you have a better view of downtown. Right now, it's pretty thick and bushy in there, and the trees have grown in there. And so I don't know if the municipality or school district or probably the Muni has any plans to do any vegetative clearing to the extent of just opening up that overlook area. So again, there's complications on, how that area is used and what we want it to look like and what would it look like in the summer and would it affect the, stability of that pretty steep slope down to the southern area of Westchester Lagoon. So there's that. Okay, so moving on very quickly, let's get through this executive board report. So the next item is kind of a handful. So we know that there was a homeless camp in the triangular area, Benson, Northern Lights, Lois Drive, excuse me. And due to some sleuthing by Steve Montooth, he figured out, and others, this is not municipal land. So contacting the municipal, Farina Brown, homeless coordinator, really didn't get the community anywhere. And so found out, it is DOT land. And so DOT had to be involved. They have a policy and procedures that they have to follow, etc. I got it offline. And then depending on the size of a homeless camp on DOT roadway areas, they switch back and tell the Muni, you guys clean it up. And since this was a relatively small area, it fell into that bailiwick. And so the municipality did clear it out. I forgot what the exact day was, but it was a good day. And also with Steve contacting them or chatting with Farina at the municipality level, she said, now your council probably wants to think about what should go in there to deter the camp from reestablishing itself in that area. And that's when, Steve wasn't sure. He's communicating to me. I'm not sure whose council boundary has that. And, it turns out that's not within Turnagain. It's Spenard. Our boundary is just the southern end of Northern Lights that goes through that area. And south of that is Spenard. And so obviously need to engage with Spenard Community Council. And so I reached out to the president, Sarah Prescott of Spenard, and Dan and I attended their June monthly meeting last night. And I had talked with Sarah before then about the idea. She really liked the idea. She said, I'll put it on our agenda. And so, so she did for last night's meeting. And they already had in the queue a resolution called a resolution for safe parks and trails. Now, understandably, this triangular area is not a park. It's not a dedicated park. It's just kind of an island that's been nice and vegetated and, you know, many, many moons ago when that roadway was built in that area, the road system was built in that area. So they had 3 specific items on their resolution, and they allowed me to get up and speak to kind of what Turnagain was thinking in terms of some ideas that Farina had mentioned to Steve Montooth, which was putting in boulders and doing some replanting of trees to just kind of fill up that area with a mass so that tents couldn't be, you know, pitched and fire pits established. And so they just said, why don't we go ahead and add this 4th item to their agenda that they just happen to have, because they've got other areas that are issues within Spenard. And I didn't get the exact wording because somebody moved and somebody amended and there was some discussion. But essentially, and this is paraphrasing, and because I didn't get it, but it passed 16-0 as far as the amendment and then the resolution overall, that the councils jointly collaborate and encourage the municipality and or DOT to do tasteful deterrent measures within that area. And so that's where we're at right now with that spot in terms of homelessness. And then we can, you know, talk more about West High, but I think we just kind of covered what that situation is. Or maybe we didn't yet. So sorry. So so right now, there wasn't any kind of resolution drafted by the board, but if, you know, if we can get a motion from the floor to collaborate with Spenard Community Council and the Muni and DOT to work on some remediation and deterrent things, similar to the language that Spenard put in their resolution, then I would entertain that thought. So does anybody want to craft anything?
I would like to interject for just a moment, if I may, Kathy. So I've lived in this neighborhood in this town for 44 years. I have lived in the neighborhood for 25 years. And it really bothers me that we are thinking about ways we can re-landscape so that the city does not have to deal with homeless people. And I think putting boulders, like ripping all those trees out and putting in boulders, I know I heard you say that earlier, correct?
Yeah, but sorry, and I may not have been as descriptive as I should have. And when I talked to Spenard, I specifically said this as well. And when I talked to the president as well, the idea would not to be removing any vegetation. And in fact, then the discussion was, how do we plant more vegetation as part of? And that was like, let's not just say, put boulders in there amongst the trees, but even to kind of replant that central, what I call the hole in a donut area that they've, you know, cleared out and that burned some last year. So this would not entail any vegetation removing from our and Spenard Council's perspective. And we'd make that very clear, collaborating with DOT or the Muni. And then in addition to leaving what's there, planting and boulders so that it's kind of all filled up, but in a very aesthetic, tasteful way. So does that help your?
Well, yeah, I mean, if they're not tearing out trees, that's a lot better. But it still bothers me that we're literally re-landscaping so that we can keep people from camping there. It just seems so absurd. So I think you're you know, looking for a motion to vote on this topic is going to be separate from my draft letter to the mayor. So I'll go ahead and let you continue. But thank you for letting me speak.
Oh, certainly, Sean, and thank
I gotta
you.
say, make a comment.
Yes, please, since
So
you
Sean,
kind of
glad-
were a lot of the information gathering for us.
I just want to make a comment to Sean in the sense that I didn't even think about really eliminating the possibility of having homeless people there again. I'm not really sure that would happen. But I would be interested to see what other people what kind of ideas about what to do with that island. Maybe there's some more creative or interesting ideas. I pass that property, like we all do every day. And I'd like to see something else happen with it. So
So would you like to work with, as part of the Turnagain Spinard team on our collaboration with DOT and Muni?
and Spinard Community Council.
Yeah,
By the way, I wrote in the chat, I wrote Farina Brown's name and cell phone. She was very approachable and a good person to talk to. She's I can't remember her exact position, but sort of a head of the a part of the homeless projects they have in the city.
yeah,
Might want to keep that handy.
yeah. And thanks again, Steve, for and I see somebody has added in the chat, an arts project with large local and native sculpture art may also be used in an aesthetic way. So that's an interesting idea. The one thing that had to be made clear, as Spinard was talking about last evening, and, again, have to reiterate, this is not parkland. This is a roadway island that happens to be in a triangle, between two very busy roadways. And I can't even imagine what the traffic count is, especially because we get so much airport traffic, generated airport traffic that goes on Benson and Northern Lights in that area and through our whole neighborhood. And so this isn't something we really would want people to try and go into and walk and look around at art pieces. Although, depending on how that might be incorporated, it would just be something visually you'd see as you drive by, because we certainly don't want to encourage people, getting up close and personal on that. And because it's been naturally wooded ever since it was designed that way. That was before my time, I think. I don't remember way back then in 82 what it looked like then. But so I think I like the idea, but I think at one, cost is going to be a consideration, and who pays for it, hopefully DOT. But that can be kind of fleshed out as far as how much we want to do to it versus just how much we want to make sure it's not used. And Steve, unfortunately, there were campers there in that exact location last summer. So the possibility of reestablishing in the future is real if there's nothing done to prevent it from happening. So that's just my comment on that. And with regard to the letters, that letter to the mayor that was discussed at our May 1st meeting, that was kind of right on that same day where we found it's not Muni land, it's DOT land. Sean did a yeoman's job of saying, I'll draft a letter to the mayor, and he did. And he sent it to me that night, didn't read it that night, and I completely dropped the ball on my responsiveness on those letter to the mayor, and then we decided it should go to DOT as well. I kind of wanted to wait to see what was going on and who was going to be responsible. Since it was DOT land, we thought DOT, but then in the end it switched back to the Muni, so that took some time to figure that out per Steve's sleuthing. And then I thought, well, let's wait to see, make sure it's abated before we do anything. And it was abated. And then I just caught up with some other stuff, and I apologized to the council. I know that was generated a lot of discussion and support at our May 1st meeting, and I apologize especially to Sean. And so I still have your email and your letter, and I commit now to if we take some formal action and join with Spinard to send a letter and that reflect that, and also to send a separate letter which will discuss the West High camp homeless camp situation. And husband Dan and I just went out to the overlook last night, and we didn't see anything because, I mean, like I said, it's highly vegetated until we smelled some campfire smoke. It was just happened to happen when we were there. And so we followed the smell and the smoke and looked down the hill and saw, a camp situation, and somebody started looking at us pretty intensely. So Dan and I backed off and walked away. So that obviously is still there and it still needs to be addressed. And so a letter will definitely go to, the municipality with regard to that. And John, I want to call on John first because he also provided, some information that he observed as well with regard to that area.
So just one thing to add, that there was, Marnie was down there the other day, and there was a APD stop in that area. And I looked, the Muni actually maintains an interactive site that shows all the homeless camps, and it shows a number of them below West High on the hill. And the site shows that on June 3rd, there was something called a site visitation. I don't know if that is a precursor to an abatement or whether it was responding to an event or not. But I think it seems like that area and the amount of trash has increased. We did hear from the West High folks that you see a lot of homeless walking through the school grounds, and they were concerned about things being taken. And so I think, we still need a letter of some sort going to the municipality to ask about what is and can be done for homeless in the Turnagain area and that particular area. I know there's a couple other hands up. I think Anna is also here, and if she's around and listening at some point, it might be interesting hearing her perspective as an assembly member in terms of what is going on and what should we be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean, and then Kathleen.
So I can appreciate all of the communication and research and everything. I did forward the letter to everyone who was on the land use committee email, because that's the only way I had their emails. And I did that at about maybe 15 minutes before the meeting started today, so that everyone had a copy of it. And I want to remind everyone in our meeting that at the last meeting, it was near unanimous to send a letter to the mayor with only one dissenter. And as a matter of fact, there was some discussion about if it should be 7 days or if it should be 30 days. And one of our members expressed that she was deeply concerned and she wanted it within 7 days. And we all settled on a motion to vote on 7 days, within 7 days, sending a letter. And that was the 20-1 vote. I forget who didn't want it, but there were a lot of people everyone else agreed that it needed to go out. And President Gleason, I think that I'm feeling like there's a little bit of confusion here, because the letter was to share how we feel unsafe, and not to distinctly discuss the triangle area or the area by the school, or if it was SOA, or if it was or DOT, whatever you want to call it, or if it was municipality land. It was strictly to share with the mayor that we feel unsafe in our neighborhood. And I'd like to take a moment and just read the letter for those who didn't get a chance to read it. And it very simply says, and I mean, it was all put together. All it needed was to kind of be reviewed and make sure it was you, President Gleason, were comfortable with it. But it says, Dear Mayor LaFrance, the Turnagain Community Council is deeply concerned about the rapid increase in the homeless population in the Turnagain neighborhood, which has escalated into a public safety crisis. We acknowledge your work on a comprehensive housing plan for Anchorage. However, the immediate risk to our community necessitates urgent short-term action. Next paragraph. Our neighborhood is home to families with children walking to school and residents using trails like the Coastal Trail. The growing presence of encampments has created unsafe conditions, including fires in wooded areas, posing direct threats to life and property. These incidents endanger our children, disrupt safe trail access, and strain community resources. We respectfully urge your administration to prioritize immediate measures to address this crisis. While long-term housing solutions are essential, we cannot wait for their implementation. We request enhanced public safety measures, including increased police patrols, fire prevention strategies, and coordinated outreach to connect individuals with services, all of which include removing encampments. Collaboration with the Anchorage Assembly, state officials, and Department of Transportations is vital for swift, effective intervention. The TCC is ready to support your office in implementing solutions that protect Turnagain residents while addressing homelessness with compassion. Please act promptly to restore safety and security in our neighborhood. And then I looked up all the appropriate senators and representatives and Commissioner Ryan Anderson, as well as all of the assembly members. So it was all ready to go. It just really needed to be sent out. But I'm still confused why it wasn't sent out because we all voted on it. And the letter literally reflects what we discussed. And we're still at this moment, President Gleason, discussing whether we should include this person or that person or this topic or that topic. And it's really simple. We voted to send a letter to the mayor expressing that we were concerned about the safety of our neighborhood.
Thank you, Sean. There's others that have their hand raised. I know Kathleen, you had your hand raised. Are you still wanting to speak?
That's Karen.
Oh, sorry, Karen. Okay, but I originally thought you had your hand up. So no, Karen, go ahead.
Hi, Sean, I just want to note that I took it the same way I think Kathy did, the goal of the letter being to highlight the specific concerns of the triangle, and with the triangle's abatement that we had just learned about after the agreement to send a letter, that it wouldn't be as effective with it in the midst of being abated, and that it would be more effective to see what needed to happen next. That's how I took it. And I don't know if you were referring to the person who actively voted against, dissented in the first round of voting, or if you were noting that I didn't support the second round. But I had concerns about the approach because it felt like it was specifically about one site, and that I personally had concerns about something that came across as being concerned about one site as opposed to trying to bring something more
Okay, yeah, thank you, Karen.
I don't know how to
appreciate that.
something to contribute.
So I'm looking at the minutes from the meeting of May 1st, if we want to clarify anything. There was members voiced concerned over homeless camps and associated safety issues. Suggested community council working group, specific concerns expressed with homeless camp at West Northern Lights, Benson, Lois Drive wooded area. This is Alaska DOT land. And so Sean Williams moved that TCC draft a letter to the mayor for voting at the June 5th meeting, and then we know that was amended to 7 days. And expressing our concern about homeless camps that are popping up in our neighborhood. And the motion was made and Amanda seconded it, and then Pat proposed the amendment to change it. So that was the gist of the minute. And so we'd have to go back and look at, you know, the YouTube recording of, you know, a lot more discussion, because the minutes can't encapsulate everything. I think we need to keep moving on. Sean, again, and the whole council, I sincerely apologize. I can't wind back time. And I apologize. And I, you know, do what you need to do with me if you feel like I'm not serving the council well enough as president. But that would be an action for another day. So at
No,
this
I
meeting-
actually,
No, Sean, I think, you know, we've kind of discussed this enough. We know how you feel and we appreciate it. And a lot of people express their concerns. And again, you wrote a great letter that I didn't get sent, and I apologize.
yeah, but
Moving
apologies,
forward, there will
apologies
be
do
better
not fix the
communication.
fact that the body moved and voted to send that letter and then you didn't send it. That's not okay. I mean, if we're going to follow parliamentary procedure and you're the president, it matters. I don't appreciate it just being swept under the rug and saying, let's talk about it another day.
What would you like to do? Do you have some specific action that you want be taken?
Well, I want you to send the letter. I mean, that's what we voted on.
And I have now committed to do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Certainly. And again, I apologize.
I understand. Thank you.
I'd like to have the letter reflect the cleanup that happened and the hope to work with the city on finding ways to keep the progress moving forward.
So is that a formal motion that the letter include, you know, the collaboration with Spinard and DOT and MOA with regard to that area? And
yes, I'd like to move to add to the letter. Thank you for the abatement that's happened. We're encouraged by the working together with the community and DOT and with Turnagain Community Council on hopefully seeing something more. I don't know how to word it. Productive. Nothing with this site. Thanks.
okay, we'll get the, you know, the gist of what has kind of already been articulated as far as action moving forward, similar to what Spinard passed. And so can I get a second on that motion?
Okay, so hold on, call to order here, because we've already voted on this. We've already debated it. We voted and it was a closed topic. You can't change it now.
What she's doing is giving an amendment to the
Right.
letter that was
And-
approved last month
And
to include updated information. It still won't take away the wording about Turnagain and our safety and our concern about homelessness camps in Anchorage.
I'm trying to
It's
figure out
very
why
simple
is
and
there
specific.
resistance to
So
sending
I-
this letter to the mayor? Why is there resistance?
I don't think there is.
why
I think it's kind of interesting.
Well, why don't you, Karen, what was your motion?
I'll
It
speak.
was to add this to Sean's letter. Is that correct?
Yes.
I
I'll
second
speak
the
to-
motion.
Lynn, is that you?
No, it's Angela.
Oh, excuse me, Angela. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna do that, but you beat me to it, so that's awesome.
And what is your last name, Angela? I'm sorry.
Ferrari, like the car, Ferrari.
Okay, thank you. Seconded. Okay, so is there any more discussion? We've kind of discussed this quite a bit already, and we do have other things on the agenda.
Just
So,
Kathy, real quickly, I do
Yes,
think that
Tom.
adding that to Sean's letter will make the letter a bit more effective. I think we keep the language that we have, this Sean has presented, which expresses the overall concern about safety and the way people feel, but they're providing a little bit of appreciation for cleaning out that camp, probably makes it just a little bit more effective. Just my 2 cents.
Well, and it updates what the reality of the situation is at this time. Or I shouldn't say, it really reflects the reality of what happened as since then. Sean, you did a great job and we'll build on that. And again, I thank you with all my heart for the effort that you made. And I don't know what else to do, but the body can decide what you want to do with me. And I apologize.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or objection at this point in time?
Call the question.
Okay, Dan is calling the question. Is there a second?
So President Gleason, can you state what it is we're adding to the letter?
Well, it's going to be a paraphrased. I think Karen was trying to, incorporate or capture what obviously your letter and everything in your letter, but then provide the updated that we thank them for clearing out and abating the triangular area camp, and that we can reflect what Spenard Community Council passed last night with regard to the desire to collaborate with Turnagain, even though it's within Spenard boundaries. That the both councils, contact DOT and the municipality, since we're not sure what the integration is under that, probably mostly DOT at this point, but we'll certainly make sure that the mayor gets this letter, as well as the Farina and our assembly people and all the rest of the people that you included as to be CC'd. So that triangular area remain vegetation the way it is, no clearing, maybe plant some more vegetation, and look for other ways aesthetically to kind of fill that area out to prevent reoccurrence or reestablishment. That's in a nutshell. It's not really a stated motion per se, but it's close enough to capture what Karen's motion was. So
Okay.
if that's okay with the body, the wordsmithing will be a little bit cleaner than what I just verbalized and build on what Karen said and what our discussion reflects.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there any other discussion? We called so Dan, you called the question. Was there a second?
I'll go ahead and second. This is Sean Williams.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Okay, so is there any objection to what's just been discussed? If not, that motion passes with no objection, and that will get sent promptly. Okay, so moving on, we're still under executive board report, and just very briefly, there's still the 10-year community council boundary proposed change, which has been going on for quite a few months. I communicated with Tom Davis with planning department today if there was any updates. It's already been voted on by the Planning and Zoning Commission, but the assembly has yet to address it. And he said it's just kind of been put on hold for a bit as far as juggling priorities within the planning department and abilities. And so he will notify us when the time comes. He thinks it'll be, a few weeks yet before it might be ready to be in a position to put before the assembly. And Anna, when you give your assembly report, you can weigh in now if you have anything else to add to that. Otherwise, we're just, it's on a hold, but we certainly don't want to miss our opportunity to provide testimony in front of the assembly, since we took the time to make some a couple of changes on what is recommended by staff. So Anna is not jumping in, so I'm assuming she doesn't want to weigh in on that. With regard to the Anchorage Trail plans update, they have finalized their vision, goals, and objectives. And so now it's going to continue to move forward. And I zoomed in or teamed in on a meeting today called the Anchorage Trails Quarterly Meetings. And so Muni discussed it and said that, you know, then in the fall, likely they will have another round of public input and then go from there in the steps to move forward to passage of the plan at some point beyond the fall. So, and Kathleen, I know that you've been following this as well, but that was kind of latest I heard just today. So,
Can I add something to that?
yes, please.
Just very quickly, if people want me to put a link to that vision plan goal document, it's about 4 pages and it's their ambitions, but it really isn't their plan. And I reached out to Nicolette Dent, who's running this, and she said that she mentioned that new thing on the website, but she said later in June we will be doing some outreach around the proposed project list. So I'll be watching for the proposed project list, and she will let the community councils know when that happens. And they plan on pop-ups on the trail and tables at events as much as possible to spread the word. So I'll be watching for that proposed projects plan and try to keep the council abreast of it.
Many thanks. Yeah, because that's, and the what discussion today, somebody had asked, so is this plan going to be enforceable? Like you have to do everything in the plan, and the you know, the down to earth response was it certainly is a guide, and we certainly know a lot of work gets put into it. So to the extent possible, you know, the implementation is there, but there is no way that every project will ever get implemented. It's not realistic, but it's a plan. And, you know, and that's what we base a lot of our things in Anchorage on, are plans that got a lot of public input. And then funding, of course, can jump around all over the place. And so something that may not have gotten a lot of, you know, attention, but suddenly gets funded by a source, then of course the municipality would have to decide what to do with that. Do we go ahead and implement that one, even though there was more support for something else, you know? So it's got to remain a little bit fluid, but they're certainly taking public input, and they'll get a good sense of, you know, what trails in an ideal world should be rehabilitated as well as new connections proposed. So, so thank you, Kathleen. And it was just interesting to hear it discussed a little bit today by Nicolette Dent. Yeah. So, okay, last thing, very briefly, is the just that the testimony that I provided on behalf of the council on the Heritage Land Bank 2025 program and 5-year management plan update. It was submitted, excuse me, the assembly approved it on May 20th. And so one of the things that our assembly member Anna Brawley mentioned after I testified and after testimony was that she intends to contact the Heritage Land Bank later on in the year with regard to, you know, our request that Heritage Land Bank that really is being used as parkland, it's identified as, you know, parkland and documents, maybe to move forward and collaborate on getting that transferred to parks and getting it properly dedicated is certainly our ultimate goal, especially with more airport development looking like it's going to start in next to municipal land west of the current active airfield. And so that, you know, it's retained long term, since Coastal Trail runs through it and it's a huge wildlife corridor and so many people use that area. So, and thank you, Anna, and to the assembly for having that public hearing. Okay, so we're going to move on to mayor's report. Is there anybody from the mayor's office who is here to speak? We just put this as a placeholder on every agenda. And I know they've kind of committed to attend council meetings about twice a year. So far, nobody from the mayor's office has attended any of our meetings, but no one. Okay, so we'll move forward with assembly report. And we've kept referring to you, Anna. So welcome officially. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. And I can keep my report brief, and then I can take some questions. I know I haven't been here for a little while, been very busy. I guess I should say too, we are moving, so within the district and moving down to Sand Lake. So my kind of third job that I've been having is fixing up our house. So that's just a personal note. We are going to keep our condo in Turnagain and rent it out. So just to say, I'm still a member here for the foreseeable future, but in the process of that. So that's partly why I've been so busy in the evenings. Anyway, all that to say, so the updates I have, yeah, the HLB work plan was approved. And I did mention, thank you, Kathy, for bringing that up, because I want to kind of understand. I've heard over the years, and I remember, former parks director, being very resistant to this idea. And anyway, I just want to chase down, because a lot of folks have turned over. So I just want to understand kind of what potential barriers there might be. And I'm speaking about, dedication of parkland, dedication of HLB land or transfer to the Parks Department. So anyway, so I'm going to follow up on that this summer just to learn some more. And then a couple other follow-ups. I know you guys had a lot of discussion. I was listening in the background on the Northern Lights and Lowest camp. So that was abated on May 19th, I think 19th and 20th, around that time. And you guys already described all the nuance, so I don't need to get into that. But I can also say, we got a few dozen emails, Cameron and I did, on that topic as well. So we were forwarding those on to the mayor's office and the folks kind of tracking that. So, and as you can imagine, that scenario is playing out all over the city right now. So, down in Bayshore in not Bayshore specifically, in Sand Lake, there's a couple areas on Strawberry, other parts of Spenard, right? And I mean, we can start naming off all the locations. So you guys are certainly not alone. And I think we've also found, unfortunately, kind of the follow-on effect of abatement, which is, that some folks choose help and they've gone into shelter or other kind of opportunities there. Other folks don't, and they often relocate not that far away. So, so we know some of the folks that were on that little island were from across the street, the one that was in front of Dempsey before that. Same with Northwood Park. I know, some folks moved into Uri Park. So anyway, just to say, I know it's frustrating. But we just have a lot of kind of public wooded land that that people seem to be able to hide away in. So so that's been an ongoing challenge. And then you've probably also seen in the news some of the biggest camps, particularly Davis Park up in Mountain View. That's been kind of an entrenched area of a lot of criminal activity, including folks that are just trying to find a safe place to sleep. So that abatement, I believe, is going to be happening in early to mid-June. I know that's very much impacted the neighborhood there. So anyway, so that's the update I have. So I would say, yeah, sending the letter is good. Keeping in contact, you can certainly include me and Cameron. We pass those along. And then the folks with the departments, APD and health, and then the partners working to get folks into housing, into shelter are focusing on that. And so of course there's more need than resources. So so that's continuing on. And then other parts of that plan are moving forward. I think you mentioned Graham Downey had talked about housing and treatment and enforcement. So those are all parts of the same strategy. Some take longer than others. So you've probably seen in South Anchorage, there's a proposed car camping area. So I know that one is kind of in progress, or at least it's one location they're considering. And folks are concerned about that as well. And yeah, I see the question, is the online camp reporting tool still recommended? Yes, I would say that is an active thing that folks that are looking at, and they kind of aggregate those reports and see where there's the most challenge, or if they're starting to see an emerging area. Sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. So yeah, I'd say report the camps. And then sorry, so the car camping thing, that is not a done deal. I know there's been a lot of concern from folks down there. This is in an area that's essentially an industrial area behind Target in the old Cabela's, and would be a managed parking site for folks who are essentially living out of their cars. So you picture a DoorDash driver. This is common in other states as well. I'm kind of characterizing, who might be going there, but it's often folks with a working vehicle who can afford a vehicle and can't afford housing. So that's kind of one small slice of the population. There's been a lot of questions about, is this folks living in tents with nothing? And the answer is no, because they would need a car, and that car needs to move in and out every day. So, anyway, so that's going to continue to be the city's challenge. I will also say, I was thinking back to, 10 years ago, 2015, when you had mentioned the police being staffed up, because I remember back in 2015, it was also massive police vacancies, and that was a big focus, and coming in with the new administration at that time. And I remember some concern and reports about small homeless camps around Turnagain and other areas. So it feels like we just keep coming back around in this town. Um, that's kind of the big update. I guess another one to mention that I know is related to enforcement, and I want to be clear, is not just about homeless folks, but about everybody, is our preventing wildfire challenges or urban fires. And so there was an ordinance passed last month to criminalize starting a fire during, burn bans, essentially strengthening. It was not allowed to begin with, but strengthening kind of the penalties and making clear that it's a crime. And I know that there's been issues over the years, for example, on the beaches by Linnery Park, right? So, with folks starting fires there, I know there's also some folks like to do, those fires on the beach. So we're just encouraging everybody. I know no one likes to be the one who's enforced against. So please be safe. It does go into effect tomorrow, Friday, June 6th. And of course, we've been having rain recently, so we're not quite as, we didn't have the dry May that everybody was really worried about, which is, we're all thankful for that. But it's still a risk, between the dead spruce trees all over the place in this neighborhood and just in general, we all need to be really mindful of wildfire impacts, and it's not just a hillside issue. And so just be aware that those officially go into effect, those penalties tomorrow. And then I'll just give a couple other quick reports. Forest Park Drive, we actually had a special meeting. Or no, I'm sorry, it was approved on our May 20th meeting. We moved all the pieces forward to get that Forest Park Drive project moving forward, getting the funding approved. Thank you to the voters who supported that for this year and a couple years ago. I know that's on your agenda, so I'll leave that to Brooke to speak to more. But just to say, that's kind of the steps to get from something going on the bond to actually getting built. And then I'm trying to think if there's any other big updates. I guess one that I'll share, I've been working on, not just myself, but a bunch of others, on the fact that it is the 50th anniversary of the Muni this year. So the creation of the municipality of Anchorage from the city of Anchorage and the greater Anchorage area borough. So we're not that old, but we are 50 years old now. So been working on kind of how to mark that occasion. I've been reaching out to community partners. The actual quote unquote birthday of the Muni is September 16th, 1975. So we're not necessarily going to focus everything on that day, but we're looking at doing some programming with the museum, really bringing in folks that share that history. And just today I met with Ari at the FCC to talk about what they're doing and kind of the community council's anniversary coming up next year. So kind of lots of opportunities to really reflect on how things have changed over those last 50 years. Think back to what created the Muni in the first place. What were the reasons why, there was a big fight about it at the time. And we kind of, are living with the legacy of that and looking forward, what does the next 50 years bring? What if things change so much in 50 years, what could we do in the future? So really wanting to look both backwards and forwards. So more on that soon, but I would also invite neighborhoods and councils to think about marking the occasion in a way that you might find valuable this fall. We've got, Spenard used to be its own town. There's lots of neighborhood history, not just tied to the 70s, but right, kind of thinking back to the last 50 years. So that's just kind of an open invite or something to think about if there's an event or just participating in an event, or maybe some, you've got your local historian who knows a lot of things. You could do a walking tour. There's all kinds of kind of cool things. So you'll see more information soon from the Muni and from other partners on what we're planning. Been talking with Park Foundation with a whole bunch of other folks. So look for that soon, but also wanting to encourage those kind of local celebrations, because the Muni is one big thing, but we're really many communities that are knitted together in this one government. So it's an opportunity to kind of think about the local and the big picture. So with that, I will stop and take questions.
Okay, thanks so much, Anna. Any questions for Anna? I do not see any hands raised. That's amazing. We're going to get off way too easy. You provided lots of good information. Last call. Anybody have any questions for Anna? Okay, thanks so much for attending and providing the report and all the work that you do.
Yeah, and I'll be listening in for a little bit, and I'll put my and Cameron's emails in the chat because I know you guys are taking a break, but we work year round, so please email if there's any issues or you want to talk.
Yeah, and of course, our land use committee is going to be working all summer because there's so many items as reflected when we get to that part of the agenda. Okay, so let's move on to legislative report, and I see our representative, Carolyn Hall, is with us. So thanks for attending, Carolyn. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kathy. I appreciate this opportunity. I shared our office's community council update, and I believe that's posted on the website. And I also shared a rather comprehensive update as far as the major pieces of legislation that passed that passed the House floor, as well as other major updates in our newsletter that was distributed about a week ago. So I'm happy to share that with this group here if that's helpful. But I would say that the big takeaways from the session are that we were able to gavel out a day early. We had a lot of good quality bills that passed, including HB 57. And of course, as I'm sure everybody on this call knows, HB 57 was the public education funding bill that had some policy added to it as well when it comes to funding our public education school system and making attempts to have an improved educational outcomes for our students. That bill originally was vetoed by the governor, and in a joint session, the legislature was able to, on the last day, override the governor's veto pretty handily. So I feel like that bipartisan effort really speaks volumes to where the legislature stands when it comes to making sure that our school districts are adequately funded, and then also having policies in place that will enhance those educational outcomes. There's still an outstanding question as far as what the governor will do when it comes to his line item budget veto pen. I believe the deadline for him to make vetoes to the budget is June 19th. So we will see what path he chooses. If he chooses to make any kind of changes to public education funding, one important note is that he can reduce or completely out or zero out a budget item, any budget item, but he cannot add money into any budget item. Another win that we had was we passed House Bill 78, which focuses on not public education, our public workforce, and having basically reestablishing a more modest defined benefit retirement system for public workers, which I believe is really critical to ensuring that we have the public workforce in place who can retire with dignity, and to make sure that they are being set up well for post-retirement life, and that will improve state services when we're having all of these staffing shortages and incredible turnover in just about every department and division in state government. Part of the issue is people are not being fairly compensated, but then you exacerbate that with our defined contribution plan and not having a defined benefit option. I think anything that we can do to enhance what it means to be a public employee will only help the state. Then I have a couple of items of personal legislation that I don't necessarily need to bore anybody with on this call, but it are listed in my community council update. Happy to take questions, offer first blushes on my time in service as a freshman. And I just want to express my appreciation to the Turnagain Community Council for the work that you are doing at the local level. And then also for being great constituents. And if there's anything at all that I can do to help support you, please, please, please let me know. I plan on having at least one constituent event before session next year, and I plan on knocking on doors this summer to check in with folks to see if there's anything that you all want me to be aware of before we start the session again in January. And there are probably big things that I'm missing out or leaving out that I'm forgetting in the moment, but I'm happy to take questions if that's the will of the body.
Okay, thank you so much, Representative Carolyn Hall. Does anybody have any questions for Carolyn? You had a good update that, was sent out with the meeting notice yesterday. So all the summary of some pretty important bills. So does anybody have any questions?
I have my hand up,
Yes,
President
go
Gleason.
ahead, John.
Yeah, this is Sean Williams. Representative Hall, it seems like every session the the NEA and all supporters come forward and they ask for a higher BSA. Do you think they'll be back next session looking to increase the BSA again? Or do you think we finally reached a point where they're gonna be happy with where we're at?
I think that's a really great question, and I appreciate you asking it, Sean. My perspective is that the legislation that passed this session, so long as it is not altered by the veto pen, is still lacking in where we should be investing with our school systems. And the reason why I say that is because the BSA that is included in this year's budget at this point is still below the one-time funding that we received from the legislature last year. And so this bill, HB 57, was an important and really critical step with shoring up the BSA, but we are still years behind where we should be with adequately funding public education and making sure that we are doing whatever we can to inflation-proof that fund to make sure that these schools have the funding that they need to fund our future leaders. And so I can't say what the NEA is going to do in the future, but I mean, from my perspective and from what I've heard from many, many constituents over the last year and a half is that like we're still at a shortfall when it comes to funding our schools.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Carolyn? If not, thank you so much. Enjoy your summer. And yeah, we'll see if you've got some door knocking under your belt by fall.
You will probably see me. Yes, summer, fall, winter. So thank you.
All righty, thank you so much. Okay, we will move on now to school board report. Again, that's kind of a placeholder because our school board member that's assigned to Turnagain hasn't really been active in participating in our monthly meetings. So I don't see that she's here. So we'll just move on then. So no school board report. So we will move on to airport report. So I see that Terry is with us, and is Eric with us as well? Or are you the main person in this?
Yes, yep, that is me. You're stuck with me today. I apologize.
Hey, Terry Linseth, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. My name is Terry Linseth, and I'm the development manager for Anchorage International Airport. And I have our update. I'll just briefly go through some of these items here. We have a lot of additional passenger routes, whether they're additional seasonal or stretching into the off season. And I'll just name a few of these. I know that, we're Alaskans and we like to play hard and we like to always see if there's new deals or new flights to, get out of our state and kind of explore the lower 48. WestJet is going to be starting on June 29th and they're offering flights to Calgary. So we're excited to welcome them and we'll be doing a little celebration on their first flight. Delta Airlines has started a year-round service to Atlanta. So we're excited to see that happening too. That was a big win for us. Alaska Airlines, starting on June 14th, will be doing nonstop flights to Detroit this summer. And Delta will be offering flights to Los Angeles And they started that last month for seasonal as well. And then also to Sacramento for Alaska Airlines. And then lastly, we have Hawaiian Airlines doing the Anchorage to Seattle route, and that's starting on June 12th. And let's see, wanting to just mention a little bit about wildlife on airport. I know being Alaskans, we're all very much aware of springtime and baby moose, calves and bear cubs around in the woods area. There's a lot of woodland on and around the airport. And so we just always ask folks to be extra vigilant when you're enjoying the outside and when you're on airport property. We were excited to have an opening of Denali Spirits in our Concourse B, which is replacing the Humpies location that had been there for quite some time. So we had a little grand opening for that last month as well. And then just our typical announcements that we like to mention every time. We're always hiring with a lot of great creative jobs at the airport. And we have some links that at joinanc.com that we encourage folks to apply and consider working at our airport. And then a reminder to please sign up on Gov Delivery if you're interested in getting updates on all airport ongoings. And whenever we have land leases that are out for public notice, or if we have public meetings, that's a great way to sign up to make sure that you're never missing anything. And so that is our general update. And then, Kathy, I do have a list of questions here that I believe we received from you and John. And would you like me to go through those and just kind of address some of those ongoing items?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, you bet. My pleasure. So for the first one here on the list was just asking about the proposed timing and duration of ECHO general aviation parking expansion. And that's in accommodation to the new tower and the relocation of the general aviation tie downs because the new tower going in by Postmark Drive. And we are still going to be providing more information when it's available. This project is scheduled to go out to bid later this month per the tentative advertising schedule. So we'll be getting more updates as those come along. But right now, the official dates haven't been set yet because we don't have a contractor on board. Let's see. There was a question on the K-lot lease, and if there were any updates on that. And Mr. Sanfegis, we reported this a while back that he had put in a permit for some site boring on his lot. And this is the lot on the east side of the gravel strip. And so it's been a little bit silent. So I suspect he may be working through the design phasing still. And we don't have any estimated construction that we're aware of because we haven't seen a building permit.
Okay.
And then next item
so Terry, just FYI,
Yep.
we have it under our DCC committee report as well, that three of us met with Melissa, and John, you can jump in and give me your last name. And she is a has been contracted by the leaseholder of the K-lot. And so she's working on part of, things that need to be done as part of this project. So, we've kind of gotten the latest from her perspective on permitting and so forth. And so we can either talk about it now, John, or just wait till land use committee report.
I said, let's wait till land use. That was Melissa Branch and
Branch, yes.
Terry, you don't have to stick around, but it was a very helpful meeting. We got a lot of detail about what they're planning to do.
Yeah.
All right, good, wonderful. Thank you. The next item on here was an inquiry on West Airport cargo expansion and that project. And we do, Turnagain Community Council has been very vigilant in expressing interest to have a lot of input in the public involvement process. And we are wanting to definitely accommodate that. This project is still going through some of the design processes, and it's in FAA's court right now for review. So we're still very early in this project. I'm anticipating construction to happen in 2028. It could possibly happen in 2027 if everything were to align, but we're still a few years out from seeing any ground being broken on that project. There was a request here to have an update on the Atlas land lease, and this would be directly adjacent to this West Air Park land lease. And just for folks, who might not have a general sense of the geography of the airport, all this property that we're talking about here is on the south side of the Anchorage wastewater utility. So for Atlas, we don't have an update on any lease signing at this point in time. They do have, when a lease goes out for public notice, that tenant has 1 year to sign that lease and finish up the negotiations, or they have to reapply and go through the 30-day public notice process again. So we're hitting the 1 year mark in July, and they haven't signed a lease yet. So that's just kind of an update for folks there. The Part 115. Oh,
Excuse me,
sorry, go
Terry.
ahead.
So do we have this correct, or I'm not thinking right, that they're on the active airfield, down closer to the east-west runway and that kind of general area, that they're going to have hard stands? Is that correct? Is that the same? Is that Atlas?
I believe you may be referring to Anchorage Airport Partners, which is another land lease we have that's interested in doing hard stands, and that's closer to the fuel farm.
Oh, well, okay.
Kathy, I think what you saw, there was
yeah,
there was an announcement that Atlas had applied for some hard stand leases on the east side of the airport, closer to the terminal. And that was a separate action unrelated to this 6-acre lease that Atlas had submitted an application for that Terry's talking about. So two completely separate items.
Yeah, but it was Atlas as well then.
There was one
Yeah.
with Atlas, yes.
Okay.
So, yep, and so just for clarity, all three of these projects that I just mentioned, the airport's West Air Park hard stand development is the one furthest north, closest to the Anchorage wastewater utility. And then directly south of that would be what we're considering the Atlas application for the leasehold on the west side of the airport. And then directly south of that is the 55-year land lease for Anchorage Airport Partners that does include hard stands and possible a warehousing facility, and that's right next to the fuel farm. So that's kind of the stretch of land on airport property from AWU all the way down to the fuel farm. I do want to just for clarity too, and just to remind folks, all of these parcels are to remain on airport property. There is no proposal to expand the airport boundary to accommodate any of these leases. The first two, the two furthest up north, closest to AWU, that's the airport's hard stand project, and Atlas's land lease, should that be executed and signed on both of those projects, will impact the road and require a little bit of realignment around those parcels, but that's still going to be within the airport boundary. And I think that might have been the last item on here. Oh, there was one more. There was an inquiry here. There was a new item, John, that you were asking about, a 5-year permit renewal for discharge, including, I think it's for the de-icing fluid discharge in a Cook Inlet. The update on that is that the Anchorage Airport is continuing to operate under the existing permit that did expire October of last year, and ADC is working on drafting the new permit. And that was the update from our environmental team.
Great, thanks.
Yep, you bet. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Terry, so much. So there was some kind of mapping where there's gonna, well, I think it was a 2025 construction area where there's gonna be so much, like kind of down by the west part of the east-west runway and Zulu, taxiway expansion, that kind of that area of the airport. And it showed where just fill would be kind of stored, either permanently or temporarily. You can tell us. Looked like there was 1 or 2 areas really close to the coastal. I mean, uncomfortably close to the coastal trail where it runs on your property, or maybe where it runs on Muni property. I don't have the map in front of me. Can you kind of address that? And is there any way that can be avoided? Because even if it's if it's still on airport property and you're doing it, but it comes close to the coastal trail, is there Is there any breathing room? Because, you know, that part of the trail and you know, buffer area is pretty slim right in there. And so, you know, that is a huge wildlife corridor between Kincaid Park and then up through Point Warrenzoff Park and around the point and ultimately down into the Chester Creek Greenbelt. They migrate through there constantly. And so the more that area gets squeezed and maybe vegetation removed, and if it's just for landfill storage, it just seems like kind of a not very good use of the highest and best use of that land. So do you kind of know where I'm talking about? I don't have the map in front of me. I apologize.
Yep, no, I definitely do. And for folks, for just a geographical reference, the parcel that Kathy is talking about, if you're familiar with where our fuel farm is, it would be a little bit north and then to the west. Kind of in the general vicinity of the Clitheroe Center, but not exactly too close to that.
Yeah. So
And so we have started using that space for material storage. I will say that every time, you know, when the airport does a site selection process of material storage, we do take into heavy consideration any type of impacts that the community or surrounding neighbors may feel, you know, or have with that. I will, it's been a while since I've gone out and looked at the site, so I will commit myself to going out there here in the next couple of weeks to do an assessment of that and to make sure that I share the community's concerns with airport management to just always maintain as much buffer as possible so that folks that are enjoying the coastal trail aren't also enjoying our soil storage area.
well, I appreciate that. And I think the wildlife who uses that area would appreciate that as well. So so yeah. So maybe you can just be in touch and see if there's, you know, if you want to do a site like with John, site visit with John and me, and we can kind of discuss things if you want to go to that level too.
Oh, and absolutely. We're always happy to do a tour with anybody that wants to come in out and look at the airport. We had done a tour with the Sand Lake Community Council when they wanted to get a little bit more information on the North Link development and what it would look like from Raspberry Road. So always happy to take folks out if you wanted to have a specialized tour. We just ask that you just coordinate that with your community council president, and we can make that happen.
Okay.
And thank you for your comments, Kathy.
Yeah, sure. Does anybody, Sarah, you've got your hand raised. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, sorry I'm late. Kathy, you mentioned something about an Atlas public notice, and I'm sitting here going, what on earth, what did we public notice that was Atlas? And so I'm like, oh, that's right. So Terry, it would have been the preferential wintertime use agreements. And so, and I'll let Terry speak to that, but I was just like, what came out recently in it? That would have been Atlas, Calida, and Cafe.
Oh, thank you for that, Sarah. Yeah, I was trying to pick my brain as to what that could have been as well. So we had done a pilot program last year for actually it was just 3 of our hard stands. I'm sorry, we did 4 of them last year. Now we're doing 5 this year for preferential parking for some of our carriers that had the most operations that were to qualify to apply. And that just helps ease their efficiencies. They're able to kind of put all their aircraft together in one spot. So it helps with their operational efficiencies. So once they get on the ground, they can gas and go, do crew change outs, do any type of mechanical services they need to do, and then off they go. So we did public notice 3 hard stands in the center of the airport there, right next to, kind of very close adjacent to the Concourse C Alaska Airlines terminal. 3 of those went to Atlas. 1 is going to go to Cathay Airline, and then the other one is going to go to Calida. But from a passenger perspective or from a community perspective, you're not going to see any impacts, because if they weren't parking there, one of the other heavies would be parking there. So it's just for operational efficiency.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That clears that up as far as Atlas and what they're doing where. and other airlines as well. Okay, any questions for Terry or Sarah, since she's here as well? Steve, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, Terry, I was wondering if we had any access to an aerial photo, that would show the potential, the lease, that 50 acre lease, land potential for Atlas, anywhere we can actually see that.
Yes, definitely. We have a exhibit that when we public notice all of our land leases, we try to do a larger aerial so folks can get an understanding of where on the airport campus it's located. I'm more than happy to send that to you. Should I send it to Kathy for her to forward on to you, or if you wanted to put your email address in the chat, I'm more than happy to send that to you tomorrow.
I'll put my address in the chat.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And do you have that posted somewhere online on the airport website as well?
No, we don't post our public. Oh, Sarah, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe we do that, but but they always will be on the online public notice website.
Yeah, I think the best way to go about that would, because all of those things on OPN, or what Terry's calling the online public notice, that's the state system. All of that's going to be archived. So after it's active for the amount of time that it's active for, like for us, we typically do the 30 days. Sometimes some organizations go longer. But after 30 days, it goes into the archive, but you can still access everything and all the attachments. And probably the best way to go might just be to Google Anchorage Airport leasing. And then there's going to be a link that says online public notices, and it actually filters already for the Anchorage Airport. And I'll drop it in the chat once I'm done talking and running my mouth, and then I'll drop that in the chat. But if you just search Atlas, you'll be able to have that pull up and see all of the Atlas things that have ever been posted on that website. So that's probably the best way to get to it. If you miss the 30 days, you can always go back.
And Steve, actually, I have a copy of that map that shows the Atlas lease, and I can send it to you.
Okay, that'd be good.
Okay, and Terry, you probably weren't had joined in us yet, but we passed an amendment to the agenda. So we were going to have the Anchorage Airport Part 150 noise compatibility study under Land Use Committee for kind of me to report on, since I was at the initial working group event. But then we decided, you know what, you'll do a better job than me, since I saw you present last night at the Menard Community Council, of just kind of giving an initial summary of what's going on with that initial the study that's just starting. And so if you wouldn't mind taking a couple minutes to provide that information to the council, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, yes, absolutely. My pleasure. So first off, I want to thank Kathy and the Turnagain Community Council for participating in the Part 150 noise study. It's whenever we do airport planning projects, it's paramount that we get community participation. And I will say Turnagain has always been a stellar participant in all of our projects. So thank you so much for that. So for folks that may not know what a Part 150 noise study is, it's essentially usually takes about 2 years to complete, and it's a federally funded, grant funded project through the Airport Improvement Program. It is a voluntary study, but the airport likes to do these. This is the second one that I've done in my tenure at the airport in 18 years. We typically like to do it after we wrap up the master plan. And so what the noise study does is it takes an assessment of aircraft noise, generally aircraft that's in the air and on their flight patterns, and has this fancy FAA computation model that kind of essentially creates these noise contours that expand outside of the airport property, and it gives an assessment of how loud the the airport is with the aircraft noise. And then from there, it will pull together some mitigation opportunities and options that either the airport would need to fund, or they would be approved and funded by the FAA for consideration of noise mitigation efforts, which could include, let's say, a noise berm if the berm was close to the noise source. In the past, we had this really large project that was the residential sound insulation program. A lot of folks got new new sound buffered windows. So it's just mitigation opportunities like that. But first we have to do a noise assessment and do an inventory of what that looks like. And so that's why it's important to have public participation in that. We'll be putting out noise monitors throughout the community. I think it's going to be this fall. We have another check-in for an internal meeting with the project team here this coming Monday. And we have a lot of folks that have volunteered to have these noise monitors placed in their yard. And if folks would like to be considered, we're still taking those addresses into consideration. So I'll put my contact information in the chat. And if you want to volunteer your home for a noise monitor, which I think they last from 2 days to a week, depending on the activity that we need to measure, that would be great.
Okay.
So the next, and I'll just say here real quick to just leave it off there, Kathy, and my apologies. So this first meeting that we had with the public meeting at the Spinard Rec Center was heavily attended, and we were really happy to see that. And then we had our community stakeholder meeting too, which Kathy was at. And it more or less was just doing a project kickoff study. And so our next public meeting will be sometime in the fall. So we know, we're Alaskans and we like to play hard in the summertime. So we try not to schedule those public meetings where folks won't be able to attend. So I think in the fall, trying to get around hunting season too, so we can get the most participation as possible. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Terry. Thank you, Sarah. Anything else before we move on to old and new business? Okay, if not, we'll do that. And just a heads up that we did amend the agenda also, if you weren't with us right at the start. The last item, there's a 5th item under old and new business. We received notice of a dimensional variance request at 3414 Iliamna Avenue. And so we don't have a lot of information on that, but I'll, bring it up when we get to that point. So, so now we're at old and new business. And the first item is the Forest Park Drive surface rehabilitation and neighborhood greenway features and potential Esquire Drive traffic study, if I remember right. But we have Brooke Blessing here with the municipality, and she has followed this project faithfully for many years with the community council. So thank you so much, Brooke, for coming to our meeting and just giving an overview on this project that's actually going to become a reality this summer.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Forest Park Drive, I know we've come to the council a few times about it. So I won't get too in detail about the scope, just in general. It's a surface rehab from Northern Lights Boulevard to Hillcrest Drive. It's pretty simple. We're going to be pulling up the asphalt, putting new asphalt down. Well, before we put the new asphalt down, we will be doing a little bit of storm drain repair right at Esquire, and for about 60 feet south, you'll see a little bit of pipe work done there, a little bit of concrete work. As you get closer to Northern Lights Boulevard, there's some ADA curb ramps that are not in compliance. So we are federally mandated to bring those up to code. So we will be doing that and resurfacing it. And what you're going to have is 10-foot driving lanes with 5-foot striped shoulders on both sides. This is a local road, so there's no requirements for sidewalks per se, unfortunately. But yeah. So, and as we have been working on the project, the traffic department came to us and said, "Hey, we're working on a project called the Neighborhood Greenway, and as all of you know, Forest Park Drive is a huge connection to the neighborhood to get to the coastal trail." So we teamed up with the traffic department to implement a neighborhood greenway with our resurfacing project. And the neighborhood greenway maybe sounds a little bigger than it really is, but we're basically going to be doing wayfinding signs so people have good direction of getting to the coastal trail and to West High, because that is also a key place for non-motorized users to get to West High, and we're going to be dropping the speed limit to 20 miles an hour. Right now it's 25, so it's going to be 20 miles an hour. And the bikes will be allowed to use the full lane. So you'll see some striping in the middle of the road that gives the bikes the okay to use the full road. And there'll be speed humps, 4 speed humps. And yeah, so that's what the project basically you know, kind of developed into over this last year or so. We bid the project. Spurnack and Son is the lowest bidder on the project. It came in under bid, so that was great. We got a lot of really good bidders on the project. Spurnack and Son is a small locally owned company, and he's really good at working with neighborhood property owners and traffic control and all this stuff. I advise anybody living on Forest Park Drive or that use the road often, just keep your eye on the prize. It is construction season. It's gonna be a little messy, but we'll get through it, and you'll have a nice new resurfaced road in the end. We're trying to complete the project by August 8th. Right now, I just picked up a contract for the project, so we have to do some permitting and paperwork. We're looking at probably starting the storm drain work late June. I was thinking it was mid-June, but the contractor's got to get his ducks in a row per se. So so he told me today that he's looking at probably more or less late June, and trying to complete the project by August 8th. Does anybody have any questions?
Blink and it'll be done, right?
Right? Yeah.
Any questions for Brooke Blessing with regard to this project that Turnagain Community Council identified as one of our safe routes to schools projects over 10 years ago? Marnie, I see you have your hand raised.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Brooke.
Hi.
Hi. A question that we've gotten from the neighborhood, it just more out of curiosity, is how will traffic be managed? Will it just be one way or go through Huntington Park? You know yet?
Yeah, he hasn't said exactly what he's going to do just yet, the contractor, but he did say that he's going to try and kind of open each area up in segments, so there's not a lot of dust, that kind of stuff, to kind of keep the dust down. And so he's going to open up kind of like, for example, from Arlington to Bel Air or something like that, and work his way down, and then they'll pave it all at once, so we can not restrict you from accessing your property. He's going to have to get people in and out of their property. The only time that it's going to be complicated is when we're actually paving. So that is where we have to get the asphalt temperatures cool enough to be able to drive on. So we're just going to have to work with each property owner, and people need to go somewhere. I've had inspectors give people piggybacks to their car. I've seen it all. So we will figure it out. And like I said, eye on the prize. It might be loud and dusty. I don't want to sugarcoat any of this. It's gonna be hard, but we are not planning on working in the night hours or anything like that. So yeah.
Great. Well, it'll actually be, I don't know if it'll be fun to see it actually get going, but it'll be a relief. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And I also want to mention that, we reached out to the neighborhood and did a mailer about this neighborhood greenway. I got a lot of good feedback from your neighborhood, but one thing that came up with Esquire, the word on the street is the high schoolers are racing each other down Forest Park, and then some are taking Esquire to see who can get there quicker. That kind of thing. Esquire's been very concerned about traffic calming on their street. We've gotten a ton of residents reaching out with the mailer that we did send out. So we are doing speed studies on Esquire. We did it before school got out, and we're going to do another speed study when school starts again and Forest Park is done, because the concern that people on Esquire have is that people are going to try to go around Forest Park because of all the speed humps, the reduced speed, the stop signs, the bikes in the road, all those complicated measures, and that they're going to try to cut through Esquire. So we have our eye on that, and we are doing speed studies to make sure we don't create another problem.
Good, that's good.
So I don't know if anybody's interested, if you could just briefly say where the 4 speed humps are going to be located, just kind of approximately.
Oh yeah. So there's 2 just off Northern Lights, between Northern Lights and Arlington. There'll be 2 there's no streets to really kind of hone in where they're at, but they're kind of centered in there. And then there's one between Bel Air Drive and Esquire. And then there's one between Esquire and Hillcrest Drive.
Okay, any other questions for Brooke? Big project, long awaited project. So
Yeah, and I can try and leave my email or something. I don't know, for people to reach out if they have additional questions or concerns during construction.
sure, go ahead. Yeah, and Turnagain Community Council will not be having general membership meetings in July or August. And so we'll be back in September, on September 4th. So we'll
Okay.
see if the project is completed by the time we meet again.
Yeah, I hope so. Fingers crossed that we don't have like massive rain events or anything weird like that.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Brooke. I know you've held our Turnagain hand for quite some time on this project and have been a real advocate for trying to get funding for the project. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, great. Yeah. And I'm your neighbor in Spenard, so I'm excited to be close to a project under construction. So
okay, all right.
great.
So we'll move
Thank
on
you.
to thank you, Brooke, so much. Moving on to Minnesota Drive non-motorized pavement project and Benson non-motorized crosswalk features. This is kind of, and I put John down because I thought he was going to be attending an AMAT's Technical Advisory Committee meeting this afternoon, but he wasn't able to do so. And I joined in on the meeting when they were about probably 3/4 of the way through this agenda item. So unfortunately, I can't provide tons of information, but I'll start at the end and then work my way backward if anybody has any specific questions. Is in the end, the Technical Advisory Commission, which then their decision will be passed on to the policy committee for final determination. But they voted on a motion that was made to separate out projects that were going to be together on this. So this is from Minnesota Drive, from Hillcrest Drive to Tudor. And they're going to be doing I think a repavement process in as far as rehabilitation, but they're looking at ways to make that stretch of road much safer for non-road motorized pedestrians, bikers. And so looking at, numerous things on how to make that happen. And they are one of the key components, I think, that either officially or unofficially, I know Turnagain Community Council has been a supporter of this, and so has Spenard Community Council for many years, to add that 4th-way crosswalk between Benson, over Minnesota, from the west to east or east to west, whichever way you're going. Now you have crosswalks in a U shape, but there's not one at Benson and Minnesota, like to go over to the Walgreens and in that area. And so that's why a lot of people just kind of run out across the street and the whole 9 yards. And so they want to go ahead and put a formal crossing and make that all 4-way, all 4 corners, or all 4 sides, I should say. So that's a biggie. And there's numerous other things that are part of that. Also, they initially said part of that will also be introduction, or at least studying, I should say studying, a hawk signal, which I had no idea what it was. So I looked it up online. And I still couldn't really say what it is, except it's an activated way to have people cross and trigger some yellow and then red lights, even mid crossing between, because there's a half mile between crossings. And that's just a long way for people to go up to an intersection as opposed to just going, mid section. So they're going to look at that, idea as well. And so, and then these hawk signals. And I know, Anna, you have your hand up, so I'll let you jump in 1 second. So in the end, somebody moved on the committee to separate out the consideration, and you'd have to start with traffic studies and funding and the whole 9 yards about this hawk signal that would be implemented along this stretch of road. And from all of the other things, the repaving and the redoing curb and gutter and all sorts of stuff in these crossings, mid-block crossings, and one at Benson and Minnesota. And so the didn't pass unanimously, but it did pass to break those two apart, so that there's more, it can be expedited more, the ability to expedite better on some of those other ideas that they have for Minnesota. So Anna, I'm going to let you jump in because I'm sure you know all about this.
Oh yeah, thanks. No, actually, I didn't have that information because I don't follow AMATs. I always joke, there's transportation planners and there's the rest of us planners, so I leave that to other people. But that's really great. I was just going to mention a year ago I met with Sean Holland at DOT, and then Anna Boson, one of their I forget her title, but she's great, and she and he and I talked about that, and at the time their answer for that fourth crossing was basically we can't do it because of the turn lanes and all that stuff. So that's really great to see that they've moved on that, because everybody asks, why not? And so that's awesome news. Just wanted to say that that's an evolution on their part for sure, and glad to hear about the other things.
Yeah, and don't rely on me to be the final source of that. I missed most of the presentation because I was involved in another team's meeting, and so contact Assembly Member Voland, I think it is on that, and I'm not sure if he chairs it, but he's certainly on that committee, so he'd be a good source of information to confirm or deny anything that I just said about what I heard very briefly, and the motion that was made, and to separate out those two ideas. So if you want more information, certainly go to AMATS and contact Assembly Member Voland, and or Spenard Community Council has been following this for a long time as well. So they've appreciated all the effort. Both Lindsay Hyduke from Spenard and myself testified at the end of the presentation about the cheese grater barrier thing they put up year ago, last fall, and I don't know when it was. Anyway, and they really didn't say much about that, so I didn't catch if that was going to be removed or just still there. I'm not positive about the status of that feature, if you can call it that. Okay, so let's move on to this. So that was an FYI. And so the third item under old and new business, and let's see what time it is the approval of a resolution for something that was on our agenda May 1st. Then that was TCC VP and neighbor on 30th Avenue and the problems with Rush Soccer Organization using Lloyd Still Park for their soccer games, but really aren't, the parking, it creates an issue, and others, and Karen got into a lot more detail at our May 1st meeting. And so we decided to go ahead and see if we could pull together a resolution for consideration at this meeting. That didn't happen, but we could certainly make a motion to, and we did discuss that they probably already have their use permit, so it's nothing like we would request that they don't get awarded the use permit for that particular soccer field and park area, because that's probably already a done deal. But I think I'll go ahead and turn this over to Karen, and you can just, tell us what maybe would be effective at this point in time for the council.
Thanks, Kathy. Uh, yeah, that was my bad on not drafting the resolution that I committed to.
Karen, I think we lost you. Can you hear it? Can you hear me? Karen, I know she had problems when we had our Zoom board meeting earlier. So hopefully she'll be able to jump back on. So we'll go ahead and go to this fourth item that that came to our attention, that we've added now to the old and new business. And so I'll just go ahead and read this. Will go before the Anchorage Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals. It's case number 2025-0043. The petitioner is Elizabeth Morgan. And this is a request for dimensional variance from municipal code, table of dimensional standards, residential districts, to allow a single family dwelling to encroach into the required front setback. And this is at 3414 Iliamna Avenue. So that's generally located south of Iliamna Avenue, west of 4 Acre Drive, north of Kinnick Avenue, and east of Mackenzie Drive. So it's zoned R1A, single family residential larger lot district. So I don't know if anybody is familiar with this or know the homeowner. I think this property is currently for sale, but I don't know details, and that information is not included on this notice for a public hearing in front of the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals on June 12th. So I have no idea, don't have any other information. That's all we've been provided. And so does anybody have any thoughts about weighing in on this particular action proposal? Since we don't have the property owner here to provide more detail, then does anybody want to suggest what we should do with our notice that we received? Okay, well, if then TCC will take no action on this. And if anybody wants more information, I'm sure this is online under the municipality on public hearing. But it doesn't give any, again, it's case number 25-0043. If anybody wants to look into this in more detail, if you live in that area. Okay. All right. So Karen, do we have you back or not? I don't think we do. So we're going to go ahead and move on, and we'll jump back to her and the Lloydsdale soccer situation on 30th Avenue. But we'll go ahead and move on to TCC committee reports. Land use committee reports. Sorry. And it is 20 till 9, so we're good for a little bit here before we may have to move to
Karen is back.
Oh, thank you, Dan. Karen, we lost you for a while there. Sorry.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you want to go ahead and jump back in on the topic of the soccer and 30th Avenue situation.
I apologize to everybody. My computer power was off, so I had to find a plug-in. And I apologize for not getting the resolution drafted. The issue is the parking at the very small parking lot at Lloydsdale, and then the overflow parking on 30th that isn't following the parking signs, and the need for it to move over to Turnagain Elementary. Because we don't have a resolution, and because like you pointed out, Kathy, the permit's been signed for the year, I think we'll be working with the permit holders to encourage their or parents for enforcement. And then I had also been trying to contact the police for a liaison officer's visit to the community council, and I didn't get anywhere on that last year, but I think if you give me the summer, I'll try to make that happen, and I can also work with them on if it becomes too much of a problem, so that they could potentially do some parking enforcement on the road here. And I think that will be a good solution. And again, I apologize for not making that resolution happen.
That's okay. Life gets in the way sometimes. We're all fallible and we do our best. And Karen, you do a lot by serving as vice president on the board. So we will just go ahead and let the neighbors take the lead on this. I hope for the best, and hopefully, if you get APD out there and just have a friendly chat with these folks.
We
Hopefully
lost
the
your
rest of the
volume,
summer-
Kathy.
I'm sorry, what?
We need more volume with you.
I don't. Okay. Okay, is that
Maybe
better? Is that
maybe it's
better?
me.
Dan, is that better?
Yeah.
I'm at my max now, so that's okay now? Everybody can hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we'll go ahead and jump down into just Karen, for your benefit. We went ahead and we took no action on this dimensional variance that we added to the agenda that we got notice of. So we'll just go on to land use committee reports, and let's see, with regard to Fish Creek Trail connection, John, I'll let you take the lead on that and I can fill in if needed.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. They had an open house back in March 19th, which a number of us attended. And we wanted to set up a land use committee meeting to discuss specific questions and ask them to provide some detailed maps, which can be found on a small scale on the Fish Creek Trail Connection website. And for anyone who's interested in really understanding more about that project, I would go to the Fish Creek Trail Connection website. I would go to the resources page. And then the trail is broken up into 3 maps, which are called Scroll Map 1, Scroll Map 2, Scroll Map 3, and they provide quite a bit of detail about the project layout. So Kathy and Dan and I sat down and went over the scroll maps in detail. We had gotten Matt Edge of CRW to give us an enlarged copy so we could sit down and look at them.
And excuse me, and didn't Sandy, you
And
provided.
Sandy afterwards provided some comments after we provided our initial comments. So we met and we sort of developed the comments first, and came up with quite a few comments and questions. I think it's perhaps a total of about 5 pages or so of actually 6 pages of comments and questions, because there is a lot of information there. And then we ran those past Sandy to take a look at and add a couple questions. And I know as a property owner, John Haxby had a couple questions he wished added. So we sent those off to Matt Edge 2 weeks ago. And he and his team are looking at them right now, getting ready to answer the questions. They haven't done so yet, but when they have their answers, then we can sort of schedule a land use committee meeting to sit down and go over those questions and answers and see what we think. And I guess, Kathy, our plan is once we know when we were going to have those answers, we would send something out to the general membership to see who's interested in attending a land use committee meeting and provide some information on where and when. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, now the ball is in the project team's court to they ask for lots of questions and input. So we did our due diligence on that. Had quite the conversations, and those drawings, which are online, if you're really interested, it's it's interesting to see the detail and the level of especially what they're going to do to relocate a significant portion of the coastal trail on the north end. But so we came up with questions. So now waiting for them to get back to us after they feel like they're ready to have a land use committee meeting with Turnagain. And so what we had kind of came up with as the idea to handle this is because the project team is concerned about like 200 people, showing up at our land use committee meeting, which I don't think that's even close to reality, but just to know where the actual committee would be held, the meeting would be held, what kind of venue, what size, etc. The agreement was that once we set up a mutually agreed upon date for our committee, with John and me as co-chairs, then Turnagain will ask FCC to send out an email to our list to inform them of the date and time of our land use committee meeting with no location, with location to be determined. And we request that anybody interested in attending RSVP so that then we will have a much better feel for where this event should be held. If we're going to need Spadard Rec Center, we can use FCC conference room, or if there's only 4 of us, we can meet over at CRW. And then we'll go over a lot of that detail based on the questions and comments that have been submitted and any other information that they have for us at that time. So that's kind of how where the process is right now and how it will move forward. So just when that email notice goes out, RSVP if you want to attend that meeting. And Steve and I chatted the other day, Steve Montooth, and he's, of course, followed this, has been an active follower and participant in this project per se. And he's going to be out of town for a while. So, John, I haven't talked with you about this, but we talked about maybe having a hybrid meeting so
Sure.
that Steve could participate and any others who may be out of Anchorage at that time, but still are interested in that, that committee meeting whenever it's scheduled. So just wanted to make sure I mentioned that so that we don't forget that when we're talking with Matt about, the next step after we get a date set.
Yep. And certainly we could get together with anybody who's interested, pull out the maps and go through the questions. But I think you'll see the questions are pretty detailed. So
They're very detailed, and we put a lot of time and effort into that because as we can all say, this is a great project. We support it with conditions. Those conditions really haven't been met yet, and we didn't even know about the relocation of the coastal trail when we weighed in on this at a formal basis. But the devil's in the details, and we noticed several details that probably need a lot more discussion and review. So, so that's that item. The next item is we did already address Part 150 noise study. Thank you, Terry and Sarah. K-Lot, general aviation hangar development at Lake Hood update. And Lamar was part of a meeting. Now, Lamar isn't with us this evening, is he? So John and myself and Lamar met with
Laura Strand.
Laura Strand at her home, and she had refreshments yesterday, or what was it, yesterday or the day before? The day before. And had a great discussion and found a lot more information about the proposed K-Light Genry Aviation development that's going to be located south and east of the Lake Hood Strip. So, John, I'm going to turn that over to you as well to just kind of give a summary of new information that we found out about and where the leaseholder is in the process at this point.
Perfect. So they're proposing to build 4 structures on the lot, which is located at the southeast corner of the Lake Hood airstrip. And it's separated from the neighborhoods to the east of that airstrip by a 150-foot trail utility transportation easement that's vegetated. So they're planning on building 4 structures about 70 feet long each structure. They're going to be divided into 2 hangars each structure. So there'll be a total of 8 hangars. The guy who has a lease runs a flying service. He's going to put a plane in there, but he does not intend to operate his flying service out of the hangar, which is sort of good news. one of the more interesting things is, in order for them to provide sewer water and storm water, they're going to have to put some ditches across the vegetated utility easement to hook up to some storm drains and water mains in the neighborhood there to the east. But it doesn't look like that's going to be a tremendous amount of disturbance, and they have committed to trying to save the vegetation and revegetate it. There are commitments in the lease document they're abiding by with all the doors of the hangars will open away from the neighborhood, so they'll not be facing the neighborhood. They'll be building some swales in the project to treat and detain storm water. And they've also been told that they should not use Lakeshore Drive for construction activities, so they won't be running through that neighborhood. It does require a Corps of Engineers permit, which is currently in the process of being submitted. We're going to try to check on that. We provided some questions to through Laura Strand at the meeting, and some of them have been answered. You know, it looks like the largest aircraft they might use on it might be something like a de Havilland Otter. They will be using some de-icing fluids potentially, but will be complying with any airport de-icing fluid requirements. And I think that's kind of the information. It seems like this project is meeting demand for private hangars, and so the applicant is actually putting out notice soon to see who would want to lease one of his hangars. So there'll be a total of 7 additional leases for a hangar in addition to the one he's going to occupy.
Yeah, we did have a discussion that's we hope it's not inevitable, but we're pretty sure that it's going to trigger additional leases and development proposals north of where the K-Lot development area is going to be.
It certainly may encourage others to apply and develop
Yeah,
those
encourage
sites.
others to apply once they see that, okay, this is actually a real deal. And unfortunately, and the Melissa, who's contracted to work on some of this for the K-Lot leaseholder, said, yeah, that the access road that they're going to build to get to this development is going to be down there at the southeast part of the lot. But she admitted that if lots are leased out to the north into more areas of Turnagain Bog, and that's Class A wetlands, as opposed to where this is Class B wetlands, so it's more valuable. But again, up against very close to the Turnagain neighborhood there on the west side, that will, any other access to those, there will definitely have to be a road built on the west side, and that within that 150-foot area between the chain link fence and Turnagain Homes and the lease lot.
Actually, east side, east,
side.
east.
Sorry, excuse me, east. Thank you, Dan. East side. So that they'll have to build a road access.
So nothing's been proposed yet, though. This is all.
Nothing's been proposed. We just
This is
kind of
all
see
speculation.
this as a potential doors opening, hangar doors
Yep.
opening, shall we say?
Yep.
So
So
that's
we'll
we're at.
continue to work with the applicant's representative there, and as we get designs and drawings, try to be able to review them and provide input.
Yeah, they will be needing a building permit from the Muni, from the airport, from DOT, Corps of Engineers, since it's wetlands. So, that they're all in that process. They're not, none of that's been formally done yet, I don't think, if I remember right.
Okay. So any questions?
Okay, good enough. All right, the next item under Land Use Committee report is the targeted review and amending the 2020 comp plan and 2040 land use plan. So the planning department for the Muni has kind of turned over the beginning work on that to the Planning and Zoning Commission, not in a formal capacity, but as just a partner with the planners to review parts of these plans that focus on housing and provide recommendations. And then when they go through that process and they've met twice now. They have another meeting this coming work session, this coming June 12th. And they aren't taking any formal positions. They're not voting on anything. These are just work sessions, but they're talking things out and seeing what could be amended in the plans and how to move forward to expedite, for housing in both of those plans. And so once they've done that, they turn everything back over to the planning department. Planning department puts something formal together. It'll go back to P&Z Commission as a formal body to review and go over. And then ultimately this will end up in front of the assembly. And so that's kind of what's happening with that now. And I've attended one of the work sessions, and we didn't even know about the first one. But then John, are you planning to go to that one on Monday night? I'll try.
Yeah,
and
I
get
am.
Yeah. So again, it's just kind of an informal session where they talk about things with planning department there is to provide some guidance, and that's where we're at in the process on that. So the next one is snow and management strategy update. And John, you've been part of that, but
Yep,
yeah,
nothing new.
nothing new. And so the last item is P&Z case 2025-18, which is amending the Title 21 to change standards regarding site access, building frontage, driveway, and how private properties connect to public streets. The public hearing in front of the assembly is this coming Tuesday. John served on a kind of a working group on that, and TCC has already weighed in on it. And I'll let you take it from there, John.
So being part of this task force, what they're trying to do is they're trying to undo some unintended consequences of putting some design standards in that actually had the opposite effect of increasing the cost of development and stifling multifamily development. So they're providing the more flexibility to undo that. There's really nothing that in there that I think is alarming to us. The one thing that we requested when we testified before the Planning and Zoning Commission is that they monitor the results and activities associated with this on an annual basis so they can, number one, see is it having the intended consequences of encouraging more housing, and two, is it creating any unintended consequences on neighborhoods, such as increased traffic, drainage, and other sorts of problems. So, I will probably repeat my planning and zoning testimony, which we approved, supporting it, but again, urging them to monitor this on an annual basis. Now, the one other thing I might say that's kind of not related to this is that the planning department has just put out its first Muni Planning newsletter for June of 2025. And it lists all the upcoming meetings and case numbers and details of planning and zoning and land use regulations that are before P&Z, before the assembly and others. And it's actually kind of a breath of fresh air because we're finally getting some advance notice of what's happening. And I'm not quite sure how far and wide they sent this, but it'd be nice, Kathy, to find a way that anyone who's here and interested in following that can find it.
Yeah, good question. I actually got one because the one of the community councils that I've signed up on email to get all the community council notices, and I don't remember which one actually had it as an attachment for their meeting. And so that's the first time I saw it. But so yeah, there's multiple things coming up in June. Kind of the key ones that we talked about is P&Z work sessions and
And there's a couple in July,
Site-
which
site
people should pay
access one,
attention to.
yeah, go ahead, John.
And that's the transit supported development overlay, which actually affects a chunk of Turnagain. And so there's a case before P&Z on June 14th. In terms of two related ordinances to that. So those I think are important things to see. I would suggest people take a look at the planning department website and see if they can find a link to the Muni Planning newsletter. And if you can't, email Kathy and myself, and we can probably get you a copy of it.
Yeah, and be sure and use my kathy.gleasontcc@yahoo.com email. I'm not getting into Turnagain President right now. Just use both. Go make sure you hit both. So when you said June, did you mean July, John? on
July,
that?
yes.
Yeah,
July
on
is the transit supported development, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's something that we've talked about at the land use committee level as well. So, okay, thank you, John.
We're 2 minutes away from adjourning.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it looks like we squeezed everything in unless somebody else has anything they want to bring up that we haven't covered this evening.
And I'm putting my email in the chat in case anybody wants to reach me about this stuff.
Okay, thanks. And again, Dan, thank you for hosting. Thank you guys for sticking with us on this beautiful, turns out beautiful, June evening. And once again, we won't be meeting until September, but if we see any reason to schedule a special meeting, we will, and that notice will go out. Otherwise, land use committee and board are, going to be working throughout the summer on behalf of the council's work. So thank you so much,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys have a good summer and
Thanks
enjoy,
all.
hopefully,
Thank
more
you.
sun.
Thank you.
And Steve will be in touch, and safe travels.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thanks for all your work.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a great summer. Signing off.